So hey everyone, it's been a quite a long time since I have recorded some videos. So today I'll be going over things which is happening in the AI space, and specifically I'll be reading this blog post which you were seeing now by Matt Shumer. This is really a good blog post. You should definitely properly read it out instead of just listening to certain opinion of mine, and I'll be covering this blog post not end to end but certain part of it, and then maybe discuss about the things I'm thinking about or other side of things which I actually wanted to talk about. The second half of the video will be current trends in AI, what things are going on about the LLM models, image model, video models, and where the things are heading towards. And in the first half of the video, I'm gonna be talking about this blog post. So this is really an interesting article. Something big is happening. So this is the only line which I do disagree with due to a very fundamental reason, because if you see, the future is being shaped by remarkably small number of people, a few hundred researchers at handful of companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and a few others. A single training run managed by a small team over a month can produce an AI system that shifts the entire trajectory of the technology. Well, I do think that there are other type of companies which are also ahead of it, and yeah, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, but I believe Google is on top of everything due to certain reason I'm going to be talking about later half of the video. But anyway, because there are literally very good Chinese companies which are as good as and even better at some AI models compared to this closed source company. So yeah, so if you see that how AI is growing over the time, that it is very fast paced. So let me show you an comparison which is mud. So let me just do a log scale. This is a log scale. You will see that the time GPT-2 was working for probably 4 seconds and even lesser than that. Then it marginally grew over time, and if you see in a linear scale, then we'll see how fast it is growing. Right now the top models are GPT 5.3 codex, and after some months this might not be the best model. And the thing is that this graph is actually growing exponentially, and models are actually working way longer in real world use cases, and these are the models which we do have access to. These are not the top model which these companies internally use, maybe. Anyway, each new model was not just better than the last, it was better by a wider margin, and the time between new model releases was shorter. So if you see that on GPT-2, for example, GPT-2 was just a next word predicting model, then it was fine-tuned to create GPT-3, which was sort of an assistant where you can ask question and it can give you certain type of answer. And the transformer architecture, GPT stands for General Pre-trained Transformer, I think, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, so we are seeing multiple benchmark scores which are going around all over the internet, and there is a law which is, if you see, for example, water at 98 degrees Celsius, and if it maybe increased by 1 degree Celsius, which is 99 degrees Celsius, don't change the state of it. But when it comes from 99 to 101, for example, the state of water changes. It became in a different state, which is air, gas, or whatever you call it. Fundamentally, when you see benchmark scores, and if it is growing by 1 or 2 or even 3, 5, 10%, you might think that it is marginal growth. But actually, if it is better at a certain task by few percentage, comparatively human especially, then that marginal growth is very exponential in a long-term basis. And that is what I will be referencing all over the blog post. And yeah, that is also true. I'm no longer needed for the actual technical work of my job. So recently I'm working on open code Ralph loop. If you don't know Ralph, so Ralph is basically a loop which creates initially user stories, and then it iterates on each user stories to create that exact feature. And this is entirely open source. I'm using open code, and I'm using the proxy of Google Anti-Gravity to use Opus 4.6. Right now it is in Opus 4.5 if I'm not wrong, because Opus 4.6 just released not quite a while ago. So yeah, I will integrate it. That's not an opinion, that's not an issue, and I'll be publishing all of it if I have enough time. So yeah, stay updated on that. Anyway, so what it do actually, that you just try to share the idea, then it has a skill of PRD. So it see the PRD skill, and then it try to understand what things are needed, what things are not needed, what things it should be building, and it asks you certain question, and when you give answer, and you might continue that process for a long time to make it more refined, and you can probably leave it right in there. And but after that you tell it to use a skill of Ralph. So what does Ralph do? That it uses the PRD document to create a PRD.json file. And that PRD.json file is basically a combination of all the user stories. Maybe an app might have 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100 user story. And it creates a JSON file where the pass is equal to false. And each loop runs a single time in a single context window, in a single session, and it tries to complete the whole user story in that single context window or in that single session. It has some criteria through which it can test that if it is working or not. If it is not working, then it will try to iterate that, and then it is a loop. So it creates the entire software in a day, actually, if you really want to. Probably in hours. You just need to keep your computer turned on, or maybe you can purchase a virtual machine and you can run it 24/7 over there. But anyway, that's not the point. The point was that it is true, actually. You are no longer needed for the actual technical work of your job. And same thing is being applied to almost everyone. The creator of OpenClaw, he even publicly stated that he just ships code. He have that intuitive feeling that what AI can do or not. And based on that, he gives his idea and he just publishes the entire workflow or the things he's building itself. And yeah, here he just talk about that exact thing, but in his own way. And I'll be publishing all of it, but anyway. And recently, in the last few weeks, there are few model releases which was very foundational and very revolutionary in a way, specifically GPT 5.3 Codex, which is right now not on Artificial Analysis Index. Right now, Cloud Opus 4.6 is on the top, but I believe GPT 5.3 Codex will be much above it, specifically in Coding Index and in other HW bench verified or whatnot. Anyway, and this is also important. You see, why it matters to you even if you don't work in tech. The AI lab made a deliberate choice. They focused on making AI agent at writing code first, because building AI requires a lot of code. If AI can write that code, it can help build the next version of itself. So initially it was like the actual idea. I have heard from many people, be it Ilya Sutskever, Mira Murati, or top founders. So to create a system which is better than us, we need an inflection point where it can able to rewrite itself, it can able to understand itself, because we will be playing at that top of time game where AI is just a little dumber than us or a little smarter than us. It just if it can self-improve, then that was the main idea of building ASI, artificial super intelligence, or even general intelligence. The term general is actually derived from actually the opposite of it, which was narrow intelligence, because initially in the checkers or even chess, AI was very good at those side of things at a very specific task, and that's why the term got popularized. That but if we build an AI which can able to maybe better at everything, not just only one single task. And there were multiple different types of it, and there are two ways to build AGI. One is to make an AI model which knows everything, or make an AI model which can able to learn itself. So for example, if you give a child a bicycle, it can able to learn within few days. Similar like it, if you right now give an AI skill, it can able to use that. I can give you an example actually. So recently Remotion launched a skill. Before that, people used to thought that editing video is very hard job for AI to do. But because Remotion created a very good documentation on how to implement that, it was able to create very high quality motion graphic in just few prompts. So the bottleneck was not the actual model, the bottleneck was the documentation. And based on that documentation, if the model become much better, then it can able to reference those documentation easily. So we sort of created an AI which can able to learn very fast. So there are a lot of things which are going on. I'm going to be discussing later half of the video about DeepSeek and whatnot, but yeah. And if you think that this is just simple bullshit, that nothing is actually happening because I have used ChatGPT, it cannot do that, some of this and this and that. But the actual thing is, you might have tried a year or 2 years ago, and these things actually grow exponentially. And if you have not paid for any AI subscription, then that might be one of the reason you have not used your main model. The model available today are unrecognizable from what existed even 6 months ago, which is actually true. People don't even use Claude Sonnet 4.5 nowadays, but it was really a very good model probably a few months ago. And the free version is over a year behind what paying user have access to, because most of those don't have that thinking budget, the thinking side of things. They're using the base model mostly, and if it has thinking, then it is not that refined. So if you think in 2022 AI could not do basic arithmetic reliably, it would confidently tell that 7 into 8 is 54. By 2023 it could pass the bar exam. By 2024 it could write working software and explain graduate level science. And by late 2025 some of the best engineers in the world said they had handled most of their coding work to AI. And also in February 5th, a new model arrived that made everything before them feel like a different era. I think he's talking about GPT 5.3 codex. And if you see that GPT 5.3 is our first model that was instrumental in creating itself. The codex team used early versions to debug its own training, manage its own deployment, and diagnose test result and evolution. So these models, specifically GPT 5.3, actually used itself to create itself, read it again. And this is a very nuanced thing, and this is a future we are heading towards, which we are actually creating, and we don't know where things will be heading out. And there are a lot of things, what it means for your job, which sector you are on, and what thing it can actually replace. And most of the things are actually replaceable. I have been building automation for over a year right now, and I have built most of this automation, and specifically marketing, content sector, because people actually really use this. And also in customer service right now you are also seeing the voice agents, 11 Labs API, or maybe Grok also launched their API, which is really good. People are not talking about it a lot because 4.2 is not released yet, but anyway. 6 months ago, I would have told you the antidote is human taste, human judgment, that the bottleneck to great work of AI is knowing what to prompt. And it's still a human thing. I was wrong, or at least I was incomplete. AI is not just good at language now. It's better at language than anything we have ever built. Better than most humans, if we are being honest. It can prompt itself, it can iterate its own output, it can generate, critique, and refine in ways that would take us weeks actually. So if the bottleneck is not prompting anymore, what is it? Terence McKenna had this idea called novelty, that the universe is not winding down into entropy. It's winding up into increasing complexity, more novelty, more weirdness, more unprecedented configuration of matter and meaning. And consciousness, he argued, is the cutting edge of that process, the place where novelty happens fastest. The thing AI cannot do, at least not yet, is not about skill, it's about caring. I actually have written a very good script and overview around it on how I think through on the world. I'll be recording it because it will be a very long video and very informative, dense one. It's not about AI, it's not about things which is happening, it's about how I look into the world. Anyway, let's get into the point instead of just yapping. If you know that Cloud Code actually created a C compiler, I'm not sure if you have read this one, but it was really interesting. Over nearly 2,000 Cloud Code sessions across 2 weeks, Cloud Opus 4.6 consumed 2 billion input token and generated 140 million output token. Total cost just under $20,000 compared to even the most expensive Cloud Max plan. This was extremely expensive project, but that total is fraction of what it would cost me to produce this myself, let alone the entire team. Okay, so this is written by these guys. So it is really good that Anthropic is actually putting out who are writing this, so we can actually understand. Of course, these are AI assisted, but and yeah, this is the GPT 5.3 codex, which is really good. Now, let me come to the point. The most recent AI model make decisions that feel like judgment. They show something that look like taste. So that was my opinion on it, and I do have a lot of things to share, but I'll be sharing. Otherwise, this video is gonna be a way, maybe more than hour or 2 hour video. And I think the honest answer is that nothing that can be done on a computer is safe on medium term. If your job happens on a screen, if the core of what you do is reading, writing, analyzing, deciding, communicating through a keyboard, then AI is coming for a significant part of it. The timeline is not someday, it's already started. And you are mostly seeing now, even the video editor job, even the creative skills, and almost everything can be actually automated. The single biggest advantage you can have right now is simply being early to understand it, early to use it, early to adapt. Start using AI seriously, not just as a search engine. Use it to the fullest capacity it can be used and try to utilize every inch of it. And here are some good practices he told, and these are really valuable build the habit of adapting and the bigger picture, what it means for you, for your children, for the humanity, what you should be doing, the financial state, and yeah, you should definitely read this blog. Now, let's come to the nuances in AI and my opinion around it. So the initial line was that most of these companies are actually ahead, but not by a huge margin. And the thing is, actually, these are not even the best right now, except for the LLM models, I believe. So let's come to video model. And right now, you might think the best video model might be of Google or even Sora by OpenAI, but actually it is Fitdance 2.0. It may be changed later after a certain weeks or even months. It will be changing because I know that's how AI works. But the timeline might be, instead of 3 months or 3 years, it can be shrinked into 3 weeks, because that's how the things are actually changing right now. And the best model for video is Fitdance 2.0. It can able to see the different parts of it, and it can able to record from different side, and it can able to generate multi-shot. And if you see the example, these are really creative and really good example. For example, from anime to different art styles, and these are very good at all the benchmark. So if you see that Fitdance 2.0 is the only model making so scared, literally every job in film industry is gone. So not maybe that much, but yeah, it can do actually VFX, voice, SFX, music, all nicely edited. We may not even need editors anymore for short-term video. Maybe we need it, but the future is heading in a way everything can be automated. We can write a prompt and a cinematic video might appear, which are actually good and which can actually able to change your life, because whatever movie you see influences you in a certain way, and if AI knows what you are, then to change your entire point of view, it can create something entirely new. And I don't think this is going to take a lot of time, because the speed of AI is actually very fast. So to create a very good 2 to 3 minute short film, it might not even take 2-3 years. We can be able to see it within 1 year. And actually, if you know Claudebot or those side of things, then it can actually think like a creative director, think like an actual director and a filmmaker, then generate all the image frames, and based on that it can connect it, then it can generate videos, and while generating the image frame, it will include the style, the reference images and whatnot, and it can create a very perfect storyboard and then videos, and we just need to edit the videos. And we are at that point right now, and I don't know what the future gonna look like, because nobody knows. And if we look at the image model, we know the best image model is still Nano Banana Pro, but I actually found a really new image model. Also, if you know, the best open source image model is Qwen Image by far, and Qwen Image 2 is also gonna be released within few days, so you can probably check that out. But also a very new GitHub repo which I just saw is this FireRed image edit, and I was just going through its benchmark, and I really saw it that, for example, the best model right now, Nano Banana Pro 4.37, it is scoring 4.56, and it is the best at its class. If you look all these things, it is actually very good at this side of things of editing images, and there is not too much information around it, but if you see that it can able to render text, it can able to make edit on images in a very good way. And here are the benchmark, not enough information, but I really found it interesting. So the image model is almost as good as closed source model. Actually, Nano Banana Pro is using autoregressive plus diffusion layer, and there are a lot more nuances which is going around with it. And to be honest, I really like Nano Banana Pro, which is very fast, reliable and good, but because it is closed source, open source is gonna catch up, and Chinese models are doing very good things. Now let's come to LLM side of things. So most people actually are not using GPT 5.3 codecs. Mostly you will be hearing that people are using Claude, Opus, 4.5 and even 4.6 right now to build softwares. And the fundamental reason is that these things are actually very slow, specifically the GPT 5.3 models, GPT models. And there is specific reason to it, because they were entirely relying on NVIDIA GPU. They might not have enough GPU to run, and Anthropic actually collabed with Google, and they're using TPU for training purposes and maybe for inferencing, I don't know. But Google are actually using TPU for inferencing Claude model, because you can use Claude 4.6 Opus on Google Vertex, Claude 4.5, or most other Claude model on Google Vertex, because they have collaborated. And that is why actually you can able to use one of the best coding models, which is Claude Opus 4.6, while using RAL for free, actually, because Google AI Pro subscription is free in most of the countries which I'm seeing right now. At least it has free trial, and I'm not saying if it is ethical or not, but you can maybe create multiple accounts and do a proxy with it, and I actually did all of it, so you can directly able to use it, but it's just gonna take a little more time just to make sure that everything works perfectly. And recently MiniMax M 2.5 launched, which is actually open source, and if you see the benchmark, these are really good. On the SWE bench verified, it is as good as top models, even better than GPT 5.2, and almost as good as Claude Opus lineup. This is also good at SW Bench Pro, and it is actually based at multi SW bench, and you can see all the benchmark over here. And to be honest, this is open source, and we are seeing the open source blast from the China actually. If I open the artificial analysis index, so whatever you see, so these three are closed source model. Now it's GLM 5, GLM 4.7 actually scored around 42, and artificial analysis is not the best best index to understand if the model is intelligent enough or not. From GLM 4.7 it actually scored to GLM 5, which is almost similar in intelligence score compared to Claude Opus 4.5. Kimi K2.5 is also launched recently, and it is really good. It has 1 trillion parameter model, which is actually, I would say Kimi K2.5 is perfect replacement of Gemini 3 Pro. It's cheaper, it's open source, and it has that multi-agent framework where it can use multiple agents to do multiple type of things in a single session, and then combine all of the output to give you a certain output which you are requiring. Then also MiniMax M 2.1, this was the previous version, but MiniMax M 2.5 is going to be somewhere around over here, I believe. And also, if you know DeepSeek V4 is going to be launched probably by this week. I'm not exactly sure, but DeepSeek actually launched a new model architecture which they call Ngram, and it can able to use Ngram, which is actually sort of RAG. You can understand that it can able to understand, and it has that memory capability, and I'm not sure how they are going to integrate into the chat feature, because it is entirely different, because people do multiple sessions over time maybe, and if it can able to reference back to other chats or not. But the thing is that it have that memory architecture by itself, and you can actually able to go through it, and DeepSeek V4 is going to be having it. And not sure about the benchmark, but these are very nuanced thing which is happening all over the world right now. And yeah, one thing which I was pointing towards, that most people use Opus 4.5, 4.6 right now, is actually, even though it might not be the best model, because OpenAI GPT 5.2 codex, which was the best previously, was very time consuming, but they have collaborated with Cerebrus, so they have a WSL, wafer scale engine 3, which has I think 4 trillion transistor, which is actually a lot. So this is entirely different from GPU architecture, and to be honest, GPU is not actually the best thing to run inference on. Cerebrus is actually very good at it, and Grok with Q is actually also very good, and NVIDIA actually partnered up with Grok in a way which benefits them both, because GPU is not a very good architecture. So if I need to give an example, think that there are two houses, and how GPU works, that it packs each token in packets. So for example, there are two warehouses, and there are small cars, and they need to constantly go there to move things. So the tokens are very small, so they need to move from this warehouse to this warehouse, and then again come to that. So this is a very time consuming task. So how the Cerebrus work, that the two warehouses are actually in the same place, so they don't need to travel, because in GPU, specifically for inferencing, for training it is really good, but for inferencing it cannot actually use the full potential of it, even though you might not need 512 gigs of VRAM to use it, and most of this thing will be used in the transferring. So you can actually go through a lot. So there are different type of thing like TPU, transfer processing unit by Google, LPU of Grok, Cerebrus, FSCL engine, and there are even better theoretical architecture which people are building. And yeah, these are really interesting thing. But OpenAI, because partnering up, so it's going to be giving around more than 800 token per second, which is actually a lot. When I say a lot, is like it will be sort of like an instant. I'm not sure. Like they were saying that it will be around 1000 token per second, but let it be 500, 600 token per second, which is actually a really good number. So yeah, and the last thing which I want to discuss is the company which is ahead. And there are many companies, but I think the company which is most significant right now is Google. Not because it has the best model, because Gemini 3 Pro is not the best model, I believe, and it's not very easy to use, and it don't have that taste which other model like Anthropic have. But the thing is that it has hardware, it has the cloud inference, it has the foundation model and application. They're winning the AI race. They are hosting the Anthropic model. They're hosting some other model of maybe Meta, which are open source. And interesting thing about Meta that you cannot pay Meta to actually use their model. But anyway, so that was a lot for this video. It's already more than 30 minutes, and then if I just cut it down, then I'm not sure how long it's gonna be. But yeah, meet you on the next video. Peace.